Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. It's amazing how incompetent leadership and management can destroy initiative and morale. They didn't listen, and they will continue to feel the consequences. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. We were told we absolutely cannot use our work phone when not on the clock. The job I do requires tons and tons of communication, coordinating, and often lots of things are time sensitive. So often if one of us can't get a hold of someone, we are absolutely effed. So it's been the norms for us to communicate in advance so we can plan out our day. It was never a big deal to us, as it usually takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes to confirm everything is going as planned or be informed of any changes a few hours before we start the day. This is more to make our life and work easier for everybody. About 2 months ago, the company decided that we aren't allowed to use our work phone unless on clock. They cracked down on everyone who did it aggressively. The supervisors and managers would even call or send a text to an employee when they aren't on the clock just to test us. Anyone who replied would be written up. No matter how much we complained, they refused to budge or listen at all. They get the final say. Grudgingly, we all agreed to follow the policy. No surprise, everybody decided to just stop replying their phone as soon as their shift is over. Surprise, surprise, nearly everybody have been late pretty much every day. A lot of appointments have been missed, tons of mistakes have been made because nobody was able to get the answer they need. Clients start to complain like crazy. The office and managers were immediately slammed with tons of phone calls and getting very behind on everything. This week, we all were hauled into a meeting. They were asking us what they can do to help us fix this mess. We all pissed about the whole thing, as it wasn't a fun time for us either. Most of us just basically told them we warned them repeatedly and they weren't having it, so they can clean this mess up. They tried to suggest a special code so we know if it's extremely urgent, but no one wants to carry their personal phone and work phone around all the time just for in case. In fact, most of us told them we just turn the phone off or put it on mute as soon as we get home. They tried to float the idea of making all of us salary, which was immediately shot down, as they have a horrible history of overworking their salary workers. They tried to ask us if we're willing to go back to the old way. It didn't went well either, as there was mixed reaction. Some were cool with the idea, some were like, absolutely not, unless I'm getting paid for that time. And some just flat out don't want to deal with the phone when they aren't on the clock at all. The meeting ended without anything being fixed. Now the CEO and HR and other upper managers have been pulling their hair out trying to figure out how to navigate this delicate F-up. It was so glorious to watch them running into the wall repeatedly over stupid adjustment that nobody want. And our second story. Maybe salespeople shouldn't mess with their cashiers. So I'm a cashier at a hardware store. The salespeople on the floor have stickers and/or employee numbers that they attach to big ticket items to get credit for it. They don't make commission, but it's kept track of in our system so it can be looked up and we can see who makes the most money for the company in each department, and sometimes small bonuses are given. But they're not expected or required. It's mostly bragging rights and bargaining chips for promotions and raises. Tammy in the lumber department is not a nice lady to cashiers. I don't know why, but somehow she feels that if we make a mistake and sell something wrong from her department, it's a personal insult to her, despite there being at least 4 more people who work in that department. So she takes it upon herself to leave her department and come to the front of the store to read the riot act to any cashier that rang something up wrong. Now, normally if a cashier makes a mistake, the person who finds it lets them know in a civil, calm manner, or the cashier notices their accuracy numbers are down and tries to fix it themselves. Tammy's the only person in the store who feels it necessary to loudly and angrily lecture the cashiers. On the clock, in front of customers and coworkers. Keep in mind that a cashier making a mistake doesn't actually affect her personally very much at all. At the most, inventory might be off because someone sold a 2x2x8 oak that was actually a 2x2x8 fir, which, yes, is annoying but not worth humiliating a human being who made a human error. After the second time she chewed me out, I decided that, gee whiz, when she sells $400 worth of stuff when I ring it up, oh boy, I just didn't happen to see her employee number on it. despite it being right next to the barcode. I've told one other cashier who adopted this practice, who told another, and so far it's quietly spread across at least half the cashiers who've been disrespectfully shouted at and talked down to by Tammy. Most of us have now memorized her 6-digit number, so even if she sneaks it on there, just numbers by themselves instead of including her name too, we still won't add it. Guess who's no longer the #1 salesperson in lumber anymore? She's not even in the top 3 as of 2 weeks after ripping me a new one. Maybe don't screw with your cashiers. Edit. Hey, happy ending. Early this morning, Tammy came at the head cashier. I just watched the head cashier have a meeting with the store manager, and they both talked to Tammy. From what I overheard, they explained that cashiers are not lumber experts, that we cannot tell the difference between pine and oak or spruce and cedar, that lumber needs to keep up with marking the different types. Then they walked her through how the mistake was made. You have to type in 5/4 and 3x3 feet, not 5/4 and 3x3 feet or any other variation. Or the correct item won't come up at all. Yeah, our system is effing stupid sometimes, and the fact that cashiers are also expected to be able to tell apart at least 20 different kinds of electrical wire from that department, hundreds of different kinds of pipe and pieces from plumbing, and the fact that barely 4 out of 15 or so cashiers have been here for more than half a year, we're doing our best. She smiled and nodded and did the charming act, then walked away and maybe 5 minutes later ripped into the store helper about leaving something on the lumber desk instead of putting it away. Despite the fact that everyone could hear the store helper being called to 3 different places to help customers with loadouts. Good old Tammy. Still being Tammy. And our last story. A story of victory. HOA president versus my family. My parents, now with an empty nest, just recently moved to a spot with an HOA. Mom had multiple arguments with the president of HOA for the ridiculous rules almost instantly they moved in. Example, we have a neighbor from Southeast Asia, very nice, sweet, etc. And one day we all had our dogs on the dock. President sees this and does the Carmela Soprano come here signal with her finger and tells our neighbor she's the only one who can't have her dog out there, arguably a racist act. Now my mom was backed by other members of our community because she stood up for our neighbors in times like these, and this caused my parents to be threatened to be kicked out by the president because mom made this a big deal that day. You don't mess with others when mama's around, and especially with that pompous Carmela Soprano finger wag. Pretty sure season 1, episode 1 of Sopranos, for example. Meanwhile, president's kids hang out by the public dock, drinking and smoking, underage and in VA illegal. For me, 24-year-old male, I didn't really care. I did that as a kid, but what I didn't do was leave the solo cups and roaches, litter. So I decide to clean their mess when they leave, and while doing so, the president comes down and sees me, a mess, and roaches, an already smoked joint. Naturally, she starts screaming at me, asking a whole mess of questions, because I don't live there and she doesn't know me, and dials the police saying some strange kid's here and has paraphernalia. First, I absolutely look over the age of 21, so that's disrespectful on her part calling me a kid. Second, my eyes weren't puffy or red, so I don't think she knew how it works. I politely ask her to calm down. I explain that I'm cleaning, point to the house where my parents live, and she responds, "Oh, you're one of them." I cracked. I have never belted the word "what" so loud in my life. My parents and other neighbors hear me and poke their heads out to check it out. At this point, my dad's pissed that I'm causing a scene. He comes out, asks me what the hell I'm doing, and the president interjects him by explaining what's going on. My dad saw what I was doing, and I told him that I was going to clean it up before doing so. Naturally, he tries to defuse her, explains I'm his eldest, and I'm the one picking up the litter that her own kids and friends just left. Being the kind of person she is, you can likely picture her yourself, scoffs and says her children would never do anything like this. They've done multiple hours of community service here and other noise about how they've been here all their life and that we recently moved in and don't know how things work around here. My dad and I look at each other, knowing we can't win this without an officer, so we wait because he knows she called the police. As the time went by while waiting, the president was getting more and more agitated because, in her eyes, realization of potential truth was setting in, likely because my dad and I were so calm. My dad and I realized this should be straightforward with the officer, but does have potential to go bad for me. Two officers arrive. The president beckons to the officers before they even get the chance to ask what's going on, already looking good for me. She explains she found me, an unknown, trespassing on public HOA dock, littering and with illegal substances. The officers then look at me, standing next to a middle-aged man who eerily resembles me, this man being my dad. The president at this point was anxious, and I could tell she was scared for her and her family on what could transpire. Officers ask us to come closer and explain. My dad takes over. He leaves out the part about her kids and just tells the officers I was cleaning up a mess some people left. Officers are chill with it, no reason to be here anymore, and they leave. As the officers were getting in their car to leave, the president begins walking away, presumably home. I don't know where she lived at that time. My father, quite pissed and yet totally in control, orders me to go finish up cleaning and head inside. After that stress, I just do as I'm told. My father then asks for the president to hold up. He walks over and they have a chat. I don't pay attention, continue on, and head back inside to explain what just happened to my mom and younger brother. 3 weeks later, my mother calls me up at 2:30 on an MF Wednesday, insert Ari Gold entourage meme, to tell me our immediate neighbor was elected president of the HOA and the former president had a for sale sign on her property. Victory! Look, I don't know what my dad said to her. He refuses to tell me to this day, but whatever he said, it worked. And my parents now have no arguments. Our Southeast Asian neighbor can have her dog on the dock too, and our immediate neighbor got the position he wanted since moving in 8 years ago. Moral of the story, stand up in moments where you feel things are wrong. Stand up for those who are unable to stand up for themselves. And lastly, keep your enemy's dirt to yourself. It could get you what you want someday. But above all, never raise your voice in an argument. Staying calm is key. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.